On Iran's outstanding safeguard issues.
Hello, chat.
As a result of this persistent trust gap, which Iran has long dismissed and failed to properly address, we have witnessed a military conflict unfold over the past 12 days, which has been a source of grave concern for us. We now find ourselves entering a new phase. Nevertheless, we note that even after the ceasefire, the limited availability of relevant information is causing considerable uncertainty. This uncertainty makes it challenging to accurately assess the situation on the ground and to consider
Yeah, turn off. I'm Lady
possible
Baker.
and precisely
I
because of
almost forgot
such
that I'm playing
uncertainties,
her
our
right now.
objective as embodied in Resolution 2231 remains unchanged. We have consistently worked to ensure the exclusively peaceful nature of Iran's nuclear activities. To this end, it is critical that the IAEA's monitoring and verification activities continue without hindrance. As a first step, we therefore expect Iran to fully guarantee the IAEA's unhindered access in the aftermath of the ceasefire. This will also enable the agency to promptly resume its monitoring and verification activities in Iran in accordance with its mandate on nuclear safety, security, and safeguards. Madam President, while the Iranian nuclear issue remains unresolved, we note with concern that Security Council Resolution 2231 is
I
set to
don't have a
expire
whole lot of
this
room
October.
in this fucking
Without
place.
further action, the Council's direct mandate on the Iranian nuclear file will lapse.
There.
In this regard, we strongly urge Iran to ensure full and transparent cooperation with the IAEA. The Republic of Korea fully supports the agency's pivotal role in this important process. Based on the IAEA's
Chat does not want to see my clothes hamper.
information, we trust
I
that
want to
the
see my
Council will
art
be
stuff.
able to make an informed
And Christmas.
and
I can't get
responsible
it.
decision. Thank you.
Oh, for the love of God.
Thank the representative of the Republic of Korea for his statement.
This was not
I
supposed to
give
be
the floor to the
hard.
representative of France.
Not supposed to be hard. And yet,
Thank
it's
you very much,
hard.
Madam President. I would like to thank
Because I'm not a
the
$1,000,000
USG
streamer.
for Political and Peace Building
a
Affairs, Ms.
giant
Rosemary
world
DiCarlo, the delegate
to stream
of
in.
the EU,
I live in a
Mr.
one-bedroom
Stavros
apartment.
Lambrinidis, and our colleague, the permanent representative of Slovenia, as facilitator for the implementation of Resolution 2231. I thank them for their briefings. They've reminded us of the seriousness of the events we've just lived through and the seriousness of the way in which Iran has been managing its nuclear program for many years. Firstly, Madam, France welcomes the announcement by the United States of a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. Since the 13th of June, we followed with concern the strikes, the exchanges between Iran and Israel, and then the U.S. strikes against 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. There is a major risk for escalation which could have serious consequences for regional stability. The ceasefire must now lead to a complete cessation of hostilities, which we call on all parties to respect. It is in the interest of everyone to avoid a new cycle of violence. The ceasefire must allow for the resumption of negotiations on the Iranian nuclear issue and on all of the security challenges posed by Iran. And that is why we call the Minister of Foreign
Because guess
Affairs
where I have to
with
put the
British,
stupid clothes
EU
hamper?
and
Absolutely
UK
nowhere.
counterparts has contacted the Iranian foreign minister in Geneva last Friday. Our position is clear. The nuclear Iranian position can only be, or issue can only be resolved through diplomatic means, given the risk of proliferation and threats to international peace and security. It is essential for this Security Council
This is ridiculous.
to remain seized of this matter, Madam President. While we are meeting to consider the implementation of Resolution 2231 a few months prior to its expiration, we must recall the development of events which have led to the current situation. Without going back to 2003, the Iranian nuclear issue is the very raison d'etre of the 2015 agreement, with the E3+3 as well as Resolution 2231, through which this Council had endorsed this agreement. Since then, the Europeans have continued to implement their commitments under the agreement, including following the withdrawal of the United States in 2018. Iran has taken the responsibility in 2019 of ceasing to implement its commitments. As you will recall, we used the mechanism for dispute settlements under the agreement. The three then carried out diplomatic efforts to achieve the return of the U.S. to the agreement and to bring Iran to respect its commitments. And in point of fact, in 2022, Iran had two revised proposals, and we regret the fact that these opportunities were missed. In recent years, Iran, on the contrary, has become engaged in an escalation of its nuclear program. It has almost exceeded the limits under the agreement. By the end of 2025, the uranium stocks in Iran was 40 times above the limit set under the agreement. That includes more than 400 highly enriched kilograms of uranium. The enrichment to this level has no credible civilian use, and the Director General of the IAEA has underscored the fact that Iran was the only non-nuclear weapons state to enrich uranium to that level. According to the IAEA, Iran would have 9 significant amounts, that is 9 times the quantity of material from which a nuclear weapon could be developed. This escalation has led to serious doubts about the nature of the Iranian nuclear program, and the Director General of the IAEA himself has said that he was not in a position to guarantee the peaceful nature, and a resolution adopted on the 12th of June by the Board of Governors
F color.
Acknowledged the violation of that agreement by Iran. Over the years, Iran has at the same time pursued its ballistic missile program, which could be used as a vector for nuclear weapons. Iran has refused any substantial cooperation with the EU, and it has removed the monitoring equipment that was established and removed their accreditation, the accreditation from some of the experts. Because of these obstacles, the agency no longer has continued knowledge of all of the Iranian nuclear programs. Iran has multiplied its disturbing threats to leave the NPT. We would call on Iran to resume full cooperation with the agency, and in particular to allow for access as soon as possible to its nuclear facility. It is essential for the agency to determine that the uranium stocks have not been moved, and we express our support for the Director General of the IAEA and the teams carrying out their activities with professionalism and impartiality. Access by Iran to nuclear weapons would threaten international and regional peace and security. It endangers the integrity of the non-proliferation regime, namely the Iranian issue continues to deserve the concern of the Council. On the 18th of October 2025, Resolution 2231 will come to an end. We call on Iran to return to dialogue so that we can find a robust, verifiable and lasting diplomatical solution responding to all legitimate concerns of the international community on the Iranian nuclear program. France, with the EU and the E3 in close cooperation with the United States, will remain mobilized to that end, and we are determined to conclude an agreement which will take account of the non-proliferation regime, regional stability and European security interests. France and its EU partners would remain mobilized under Resolution 2231, the snapback provision, if such an agreement were not to be found by the summer. Since 2003, we have sought a diplomatic solution to guarantee in the long term the possibility of Iran not having a nuclear program. That remains our priority. Thank you.
The representative of France for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Panama.
Gracias, Presidenta.
Thank you, Madam President. We greet and thank the USG for Political and Peace-Building Affairs, Ms. Rosemary DiCarlo, the head of delegation of the EU to the United Nations, Mr. Stavros Lambrinidis, and the facilitator for the implementation of Resolution 2231 at the Security Council, Ambassador Samuel Spogar. We've heard with interest and hope the announced intentions for a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. We believe that this possibility will be a valuable opportunity for reducing tensions and for creating room for dialogue and peace. We hope that this ceasefire will be the first step towards broader negotiations, which will lead to progress and lasting solutions and contribute to stability for the entire region. Panama takes note of the report introduced by the facilitator on the implementation of Resolution 2231, and we are grateful for his efforts in preparing the report. At the same time, we have carefully read the 19th report of the Secretary General, and we share his concern at the critical regional situation which currently surrounds the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. We acknowledge the value of multilateral nuclear agreements and see them as essential pillars for international peace and security. The JCPOA was undoubtedly one of the greatest achievements of multilateralism in the field of non-proliferation. To take up this mechanism and to give it yet another chance is to reaffirm our commitment to diplomacy. We remained concerned at the fact that the provisions of Resolution 2231 will expire on the 18th of October of 2025, and despite that deadline, the goals both of the resolution and the plan have not yet been fully met. At the same time, we are concerned that IAEA verification and monitoring related to the JCPOA have been seriously impacted by Iran's non-compliance, as reported in the most recent report of the Director General of the IAEA. In this context, we reiterate that our position, based on the fundamental principles of Panama's foreign policy, is to give priority to strengthening the global non-proliferation regime, to ensure respect for that multilateral architecture, and to promote dialogue and diplomacy as a means for reducing tensions and strategic risks. However, we cannot ignore the most recent events, which have merely worsened the already fragile trust and has led to serious concerns about the Iranian nuclear program, as well as the issue of compliance with internationally agreed commitments. The IAEA has warned in its resolutions that attacks on nuclear facilities represent a significant risk because it could lead to the release of radioactive material. At this critical juncture, we appeal to Iran to allow the monitoring and verification of its facilities by the personnel of the IAEA. It is also essential to understand the magnitude and the scale of damage caused by the most recent attacks. We agree with the views expressed by the Director General of the IAEA, Rafael Grossi, and I quote, "Establishing the facts on the ground is a prerequisite for any agreement, and that can only be achieved through IAEA inspections," close quote. At the same time, we urge Iran to comply fully with its commitments under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, as well as the Safeguards Agreement and the provisions of Resolution 2231 by this Council, particularly given the possibility that enriched uranium has been moved without due IAEA supervision. We cannot allow a weakening in the non-proliferation architecture. That architecture has provided greatest guarantees for international stability and security and significantly reduced the risk of nuclear weapons becoming a source of confrontation or conflict. In this context, it is urgent for the parties to resume negotiations and to make full use of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, Resolution 2231 of this Security Council, as well as of bilateral mechanisms established to make progress towards regional and global stability and security. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Panama for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Algeria.
Madam President, I thank USG Di Carlo and Ambassadors Zbogar, and Lambrinidis for their comprehensive briefings. The Council convenes today on the implementation of Resolution 2231 of 2015, which endorsed the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action on Iran's nuclear program. And this is our last briefing on the implementation of this resolution, which expires on October this year. Needless to stress, but this meeting comes at a critical juncture. We meet with cautious optimism, but real relief following the announcement of ceasefire between Iran and Israel, brokered by the United States and Qatar. We welcome this important diplomatic achievement, which puts an end to 12 days of dangerous escalation and provides much needed space for the escalation, dialogue, and diplomacy. This latest episode has starkly demonstrated the fragility of our collective security and the serious risks associated with the targeting of nuclear facilities, particularly those under IAEA safeguards. The events of the past days have only reinforced the urgent need to uphold the principles of the nuclear non-proliferation regime and to refrain from any actions that could further undermine its integrity. Madam President, while this ceasefire represents really a positive development, it also serves as a reminder of the critical importance of respecting international legal norms, including those enshrined in the IAEA safeguard system. These safeguards are central to ensuring that nuclear energy is used exclusively for peaceful purposes. In this regard, we reiterate the importance of the full and balanced implementation of the JCPOA by all parties. Should I add, including its provisions related to the lifting of sanctions. It remains a key component and offers a practical framework for addressing concerns related to Iran's nuclear program through dialogue, transparency, and verification. As the Secretary General of the United Nations stated in his report, diplomacy remains the best and only way to address concerns regarding Iran's nuclear program and regional security issues. About the regional security issues, may I underscore the urgency of establishing a zone free of nuclear weapons and all other weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East. Such a zone would represent a major major step forward for regional and international peace and security. In this context, we recall Security Council Resolution 487, which called on Israel to place its nuclear installation under IAEA safeguards. More than 4 decades later, this call remained ignored, unanswered, unfulfilled. Madam President, to conclude, the announced ceasefire provides a valuable opportunity to reinforce the norms that underpin the global non-proliferation regime. Without selectivity, without double standard, Algeria stands ready to work with all partners to uphold international law and to strengthen the integrity of the global non-proliferation regime, a cornerstone of our shared security. I thank you.
Thank the representative of Algeria for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Госпожа председатель,
Madam President, we thank the Secretary General Rosemary DiCarlo and Security Council Facilitator for the implementation of Resolution 231, the Permanent Representative of Slovenia, Samuel Boger, and we also congratulate our Slovenian colleagues on the unanimous adoption of the 6-month report of the facilitator and count on their continued efforts to support the activities under the 2231 format until its scheduled conclusion in October 2025. We've listened to the head of delegation of the EU, Stavros Lambrinidis. Madam President, on the night of June 12th to 13th, member states of the parties to the NPT carried out unprovoked aggression, bringing the world to the brink of nuclear disaster. The Russian Federation strongly condemns the attacks on Iran, including its peaceful nuclear infrastructure, which is subject to IAEA safeguards. The actions of the U.S. and Israel directly violated the UN Charter, Security Council resolutions, including 487 and 2231, which we are discussing today, as well as the Charter of the IAEA and relevant resolutions of the IAEA General Conference. They constitute a direct and very dangerous challenge to the authority of the NPT, especially Iran's right guaranteed under Article 4 of the treaty to use nuclear energy for peaceful purposes, including uranium enrichment. And this was a major blow to the non-proliferation regime. And all of these actions were carried out by 2 states, one of which is a depositary of the NPT, while the other, for decades, has refused to accede to this crucial element of international security, and has refused to subject its nuclear activities to IAEA safeguards. By the way, we are a bit surprised at Israel's request to take part in our meeting, which is taking place under the agenda item non-proliferation. We would like to believe that this decision hints at a potential accession of this country to the NPT, which the entire world would love to see. Colleagues, attacking Iranian infrastructure, including enterprises involved in the nuclear fuel cycle, creates a real threat of radiological consequences, which could affect not only Iranians but the entire Middle East. All of this, unfortunately, again, happened not just with the tacit consent, but with the approval of the UK, France, and Germany, which continue to consider themselves full-fledged parties to the JCPOA. Their assurances of their commitment to a diplomatic solution to the Iranian nuclear program inspired little confidence before, but currently they're absolutely impossible to take seriously. Judge for yourselves that first these countries deliberately refuse to uphold their obligations under the nuclear deal by not providing the necessary conditions for ensuring economic benefits from the lifting of European sanctions against Iran, which were in effect till 2015. And then they followed in the footsteps of the US, which withdrew from the JCPOA in 2018, and renewed their unilateral sanctions pressure on Tehran, thus precluding any prospect of a full restoration of the JCPOA, toward which our Iranian colleagues have repeatedly expressed their openness. At the same time, Berlin, London, and Paris attempted to portray Iran's legitimate retaliatory measures, which they themselves, Berlin, London, and Paris, provoked, as unleashing some imaginary Iranian nuclear threat. They repeatedly attempted to undermine the cooperation between Iran and the IAEA Secretariat, which included efforts to settle unresolved questions. And even in spite of that, Iran remained and remains the most rigorously verified state out of all the members of the IAEA. And the Director General of the IAEA's reports clearly indicate the lack of any proliferation risk. Here I emphasize that the IAEA's reports in nowhere mention the conversion of Iran's nuclear material for military purposes or for any undeclared purposes. So the IAEA has observed no signs that Iran is developing a nuclear weapon. Therefore, all of the assertions of our Western colleagues to the contrary are falsehoods calculated for an audience that has not read these reports or that do not understand this issue. Hypocrisy of our Western colleagues reached a peak on June 12th. On that day, the IAEA Board of Governors adopted yet another puffed-up resolution on Iran, divorced from reality and inspired by Western countries. Immediately afterward, Israel carried out strikes against Iran's peaceful nuclear sites. A week later, the sovereign territory of Iran was attacked by the U.S., and this demonstrates that this 1-2 punch was agreed upon ahead of time. The UK and France, which claimed to be champions of diplomacy, rushed to defend the aggression of West Jerusalem and Washington. As a result, last Sunday, we witnessed another attempt to legitimize the use of force in contravention of the UN Charter and strikes on peaceful nuclear facilities in violation of the IAEA Charter and all norms of nuclear safety and security. And German Chancellor Friedrich Merz even made so bold as to cynically remark, as he already mentioned, that Israel is doing the Europeans' dirty work. And these are the actual words of a head of government of a state party to the JCPOA. We must not forget that West Jerusalem began its operation 2 days before a scheduled round of Iran-US talks on the nuclear issue, mediated by Oman, with the clear intention of sabotaging this process. Against this backdrop, the Western trio even had the audacity to call not for Israel and the U.S., but for Tehran, the victim of aggression, to return to the negotiating table. If our British, French, and German colleagues continue to threaten launching this Resolution 2031 that is a mechanism of sanctions by the Security Council on Iran, I'd like to remind them that there's no political, legal, or procedural basis for this. Berlin, London, and Paris have chronically violated this resolution and the JCPOA, and therefore do not have the right to engage this mechanism. And the U.S. no longer has any basis to do so since it withdrew from the agreement. The Vienna mechanism for dispute settlement still has not been engaged. The U.S., the U.K., France, and Germany do not have the moral right to mention this. It is their actions that truly have betrayed diplomacy and have led to the current situation. Madam President, special responsibility in this regard lies with the IAEA and its Secretariat, given the infringement by Israel and the U.S. on the global nuclear non-proliferation regime, which forms the basis for the NPT. The Directorate General and his colleagues are obligated to uphold their mandate as well as the resolutions of the General Conference 444 and 533. The IAEA leadership must not content itself with evasive language and fragmented information, but rather provide detailed reports on the attacks against Iranian nuclear facilities under IAEA safeguards. At the same time, it's extremely important to call things by their names and directly indicate who exactly carried out targeted attacks in violation of the charters of the UN and IAEA and resolutions of the Security Council and General Conference of the IAEA. Unfortunately, we've already seen that the Director General of the IAEA includes sometimes subjective judgments alongside facts and statistics in his reports, and these are then used by a certain number of countries to justify their unprovoked aggression. Madam President, the Iranian nuclear program can only be resolved through diplomacy, through negotiated solutions, which are based on international law and the principle of equal and indivisible security. The Russian Federation consistently has supported a peaceful solution to the concerns surrounding the Iranian nuclear program, which is acceptable to all parties as well as the international community as a whole. Here, the greatest responsibility lies on the UN Security Council, which is obligated to take the requisite measures. This is the goal of the draft resolution proposed by Russia together with our Chinese and Pakistani partners. Today, we are proposing to our Council colleagues an updated text that takes into account the latest developments and aims to bring about a lasting ceasefire as well as oversight.
Shots have been fired at Candace Owens here.
Secretary
Let's
General
see this.
reporting. The JCPOA and Resolution 2231, adopted in 2015, demonstrated that the international community at that time
Stephen
rejected
Crowder
the
and
military
Candace
approach
Owens
and clearly chose diplomacy.
getting into it,
Today we must
apparently.
make the same choice again without delay. Thank you.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation for his statement, and I give the
So
floor to the
we're
representative
gonna
of
pull
Greece.
this up.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to thank Under-Secretary General Mr. Carlo, the head of the EU delegation, Mr. Labernidis, for the informative and timely briefing. I would also like to commend
for Israel. Let's go through the examples. Candace Owens said over and over again that President Trump would send you to die for Israel, for the Jews. I'm reading her actual ex-post. Get ready, white American men. It's time for you to go die for Israel again. If you don't want to die for Israel, then you are an anti-Semite. Sign up to die in Iran for Netanyahu today, or just admit you hate Jews. Here's another one. They tried to redefine anti-Semitism, criminalize criticism of Israel on college campuses. Not true. Most crucially, seed the idea that the declaration of Christ as our king amounted to hatred against Jews. Also not accurate. All of this was done in preparation for the Greater Israel agenda, regarding which they attempted to emotionally manipulate Americans to accept. The conspiracy theorists were right again. It was always about a planned war with Iran and a doomed, heretical belief that mass slaughter of women and children is messianic. Let me read that again. It was always about a planned war.
Well,
Where's the planned war?
she might not.
It's all part of the plan.
Yeah. This wasn't presented as an opinion. This was presented to you as fact. And I had many people go, this is clearly a planned war for Israel. That's clearly what Donald Trump is doing. He's trying to get us in. Is that what you're seeing? If it's not what you're seeing,
I don't know.
this was dishonest. Here's another one. Our foreign policy is dictated by Israel. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. That seems like it's dictated by
I
Israel.
have issues with Candace Owens, but
It's part of the plan.
she may not
Deception.
be
Trump will
too far
continue
off.
to do as he is told by Netanyahu. Don't drop the bombs. Okay, we won't. That sounds to me like one person's in charge. And here's the thing. That's a good thing. Shouldn't we be happy about this, guys? Shouldn't we be happy that Donald Trump at a certain point had enough and said jump, and they said how high? Both sides. Trump will continue to do as he is told by Netanyahu. If you want to know what America will do, spare yourself the fake White House press briefings and start listening to Bibi. We are a colony of Israel. Your politicians are bought and paid for. Taking separate components. There are politicians bought and paid for by AIPAC, by the way. I can't stand AIPAC for the same reason that I hate Act Blue. They support Hakeem Jeffries. But combining that and saying that we are a colony of Israel, and spare yourself the fake White House press briefings. Also implications that everything here, everyone who disagrees, was fake. If it seems like I'm being harsh, it's because you were told that the people telling you the truth were fake and the algorithm amplifies it and it made your life worse and it embarrassed you. You get it? By the way, the worst part is you don't even get to celebrate the win. No war. Good, done. No nukes in Iran. Great. America is a colony of Israel. Spare yourself all the other fake information and know that you're going to go die for Israel, which ultimately led to an entire coalition demanding the impeachment of the man you voted for. Candace Owens legitimately told service members that they should seek a dishonorable discharge, which, by the way, wouldn't be a dishonorable discharge. If you look at the way she described it, it would be desertion over a war that wasn't happening.
LG19 writes, serious question, will there be jobs or community military members can join when I get a dishonorable discharge for not contributing to delete people or my body for the interests of a certain foreign nation benefit? I love this question. I do believe that if war in Iran is on the agenda, and that appears so, get dishonorably discharged. Who cares? Who cares? Why should you go die in a foreign land? You now have the benefit of 2020. You can see, think about those men and those women who died because they were pitched that they were serving their country because there were weapons of mass destruction, right? They were serving their country because the Taliban, they were serving their country, whatever, and these people gave up their lives. And ask yourselves, for what?
Yeah, desert for a war that's not even happening. And here's the thing. Yeah, I get it. X isn't real life. But it turns into real life if people believe it. And some soldiers, I guarantee you, believed it. Some soldiers still fell for it. Some are still falling for it. Like Private who is still AWOL and doesn't know the war is over, anti-Semitic Jim. This guy got the short end. He doesn't...
Hates Jews.
Look,
in an attic.
People make mistakes. If it was all a mistake, just say it. Serve your audience. Serve the country, Candace.
War may very well be on the agenda at some point. You know, the scary thing is that how much do you trust anybody in government? Whether you're talking about Trump or you're talking about someone else, how much do you trust them?
By Iran's production and stockpiling of vast amounts of enriched uranium with no plausible civilian purpose. It still remains unclear whether Iran has ceased its enriching activities.
Or do you approach everyone with a healthy amount of, with some healthy amount of
course of
criticism?
action and abide by its obligation? This
Judge
remains
each
true,
everything
even though recent events have changed
individually.
circumstances surrounding the Iranian nuclear issue. Madam President, as many has highlighted here today, this is the last mandated meeting before the expiration of the JCPOA, meaning there is no time to spare. Iran must, therefore, engage seriously in negotiations with the international community, leading to an agreement which addresses all concerns related to its nuclear program. Securing an agreement on the nuclear issue has the potential to foster lasting stability in the Middle East. All efforts must be deployed to this end. The role of the IAEA's verification and monitoring of Iran's nuclear program remains imperative.
She can be, Candace Owens can be unhinged at times.
The agency's
Absolutely.
professional and
And a little out
efforts
there.
in carrying out its mandate to verify the implementation of Iran's safeguard obligations, especially during these complex circumstances where the safety and security.
But I'm not as confident as he is that
In closing, we continue to call
there's
for
still
a
not a
diplomatic
risk of
solution.
war.
Only a negotiated solution can bring a lasting settlement to concerns about Iran's nuclear program. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Denmark for her statement, and I give the floor to the representative of Pakistan.
Thank you, Madam President. We thank Undersecretary General Rosemary DiCarlo and Ambassador Stavros Lambrinidis for their briefings. I would also like to thank Ambassador Samuel Suboga
for presenting the report in his capacity as the facilitator of the 2231 format. Madam President, the core common element of these three briefings that we just heard in this meeting was the primacy of a peaceful diplomatic solution.
Get some
We are meeting at a crucial point in the implementation of Resolution 2231
here off of
and
this thing.
Security Council's consideration of Iran's nuclear issue. Obviously, the developments of the past 2 weeks have impacted the context of the whole issue and have a bearing on our discussions today. However, what has not changed are the fundamental principles and multilateral spirit behind the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action and the Resolution 2231 adopted 10 years ago. The JCPOA was a unique instrument, manifestation of an approach based on dialogue, diplomacy, and pragmatism. It was the outcome of painstaking and arduous, yet constructive negotiations. It charted a roadmap to comprehensively address the concerns of the parties concerned by clearly defining their relevant obligations and responsibilities. While proceeding very well, the agreement was regrettably disrupted, leaving many complications in its wake that impacted the full and faithful implementation of the JCPOA by various parties. Notwithstanding those challenges, the most widely held view was that dialogue, diplomacy, and constructive engagement was the only viable way forward. That view was still there and was indeed back in play with the negotiations between Iran and the United States facilitated by Oman, till it was violently disrupted by the unlawful and illegal military attacks on the IAEA safeguarded Iranian nuclear facilities. These military strikes also impeded the IAEA's crucial verification functions in Iran. Pakistan has expressed its clear position on these developments in this chamber and elsewhere over the past 2 weeks. Our leadership has also remained actively engaged with counterparts from many other countries during this period. Madam President, what we have witnessed should never have happened. Even now, it is our firm belief that these actions should not be allowed to further complicate the peaceful resolution of long-standing issues, as well as the full and effective implementation of Resolution 2231. We reaffirm our support for the resolution of the Iranian nuclear issue through peaceful means, diplomatic engagement, and sustained dialogue. Pakistan advocates the preservation and renewal of the JCPOA
We
or
need to
its
get
substitution by an equally sound
C
agreement
out,
that
which
is
would
acceptable to all
be
sides before it expires in October this year. The IAEA is the institution responsible for verifying compliance with respective nuclear safeguards obligations of member states.
Well, maybe it's considered like a
It is
moon.
mandated to do so in an
Yeah,
objective,
it's
impartial,
8:30.
and credible manner, purely on technical grounds. The IAEA must be enabled to fulfill this statutory function. We believe that verification activities by the IAEA should continue unimpeded. The IAEA must continue its work in an impartial and apolitical manner to provide objective reporting and credible information regarding the issues under its purview. Madam President, with regards to recent developments in the region, I would like to emphasize the following points. First, condemnation of violation of the sovereignty and territorial integrity of member states, and the threat or use of force to settle disputes. Second, clear
Well,
rejection
help
of
them realize that. My
IAEA
goodness. Who would have
safeguarded
been bad?
nuclear facilities which violate Security Council and IAEA resolutions as well as international humanitarian law. Third, we request the Secretary General to report on the implications of these developments on the implementation of Resolution 2231, particularly those arising from military strikes against nuclear facilities. And we also request the Director General IAEA to share his assessment on legal, technical, safety, security, and safeguards points of view. Fourth, we urge sustained cessation of hostilities and a permanent ceasefire to allow resumption of dialogue and verification activities by the IAEA. Fifth, there is an urgent need to renew diplomatic engagement to seriously and faithfully address the outstanding issues in a cooperative manner as per the rights, obligations, and responsibilities of the parties concerned. Madam President, we welcome the announcement of the ceasefire understanding between Iran and Israel, and we expect this to be fully respected. We commend all those who played a pivotal role in facilitating this development and hope this positive step will contribute to lasting peace and stability in the region. This is a vital step that must now be followed up by constructive and comprehensive engagement. Pakistan firmly believes that all disputes must be resolved in accordance with the principles of the UN Charter and international law, including respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity. We call on all parties to fulfill their respective obligations and responsibilities and avoid any further escalation. Most importantly, the trust and confidence in the diplomatic engagement that was damaged by the unprovoked aggression must be meticulously restored. The Council should allow sufficient time to continuing efforts between the IAEA and Iran, as well as other parties, to resolve outstanding issues. Recent developments have yet again manifested the grave dangers that present themselves when there are violations of the UN Charter and international law. The cost of seeking to resolve issues through military means is more than evident. The region, and indeed the whole world, cannot be held hostage to such adventures, dangerous precedents, and spiraling escalations. Diplomatic engagement and the resumption of dialogue are the best means to resolve all outstanding issues. Diplomacy has delivered previously, and with the necessary political will, it can certainly deliver again. Lastly, allow me to inform the Council that following up on the draft resolution circulated by China, Pakistan, and Russia on Sunday, we have updated and revised the text to reflect the latest developments, including the ceasefire, and have circulated it to Council members. Securing the ceasefire was one of the primary objectives of the draft resolution, in addition to calling for a negotiated settlement of the Iranian nuclear issue and promoting respect for international law under all circumstances. We will engage constructively with fellow members on the text of this draft resolution with a view to arriving at a consensus outcome, signifying the Council's support for sustained ceasefire and sustained dialogue and diplomatic engagement for a lasting solution. I thank you.
I thank the representative of Pakistan for his statement, and I give the floor to the representative of the United Kingdom.
Thank you, President. And I thank Under-Secretary General Di Carlo, Ambassador Lambrinidis, and Ambassador Zboga for your briefings. Let me start by welcoming the announcement by President Trump of a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. But the situation remains extremely fragile. We call on all sides to respect the ceasefire in full. Our priority remains stability in the Middle East, and we are clear that restarting this conflict is in no one's interest. Now is the time for a return to diplomacy. We, along with our partners, are clear that only diplomacy can achieve a durable solution to the Iranian nuclear threat. We urge Iran to take this opportunity to engage in negotiations now. It is critical that Iran does not miss this window for diplomacy. President, as we know, Iran's nuclear program has been far beyond any credible civilian justification, including an enriched uranium stockpile 40 times the limit set by the JCPOA. It is urgent that the IAEA have full access, especially on Iran's enriched uranium stockpile. We have been clear that Iran cannot develop or acquire a nuclear weapon. The UK, alongside our E3 partners, stands ready to support efforts towards a negotiated solution. We will use all diplomatic levers at our disposal to support a negotiated outcome and ensure Iran does not develop a nuclear weapon. President, finally, we commend the IAEA and the Director General for their vital work, including under the mandate of UN Security Council Resolution 2231. They have displayed professionalism and impartiality.
Oh my
and they
goodness.
have our full support.
What is going
We urge
on?
Iran to cooperate.
She is the biggest disgusting whore in politics. Laura Loomer is the biggest whore in American politics. She used to be my friend. I regret every minute of it. She is the biggest disgusting whore in politics. And I'm not just saying that as a pejorative. Let me be precise and specific. What do I mean by that?
God.
She will do anything for money. Anything. She will do anything for money. She will do anything to rub shoulders with influential people. She will do anything for influence. She is a paid mouth for hire. At least one of her orifices is, not to be gross, not to be crude, but her mouth is for rent. It is for sale. You pay her money and she will say anything. She's like a wind-up toy. She's like from Toy Story. You pull the string on her back and she will say whatever you want her to say. As long as you put money in the back. As long as you shove money up there, she'll say anything and do anything. And she's a sick, disgusting human being.
They're eating, all the people that I hate are eating each other. It's great.
带来高度的不确定性。中方对此
All
严
the
重关
people
切，
that you love to
深感
hate are
担忧。
eating each other. It's great.
主席，中方注意到部分安理会成员一味指责伊朗违反防扩散义务，试图为以色列和美国的军事行动开脱。中方希望这些国家正视以下基本事实：美国才是伊朗核危机的始作俑者，是美国在2018年单方面退出伊核全面协议，恢复并不断升级对伊单边制裁，采取极限施压措施，致使伊方无法享有协议赋予的经济红利，被迫减少履行协议义务。又是美国置自身信誉于不顾，悍然对伊核设施发动军事打击，破坏由其自身发起的谈判进程，再度导致伊核问题走入困局，地区局势骤然升级。伊朗解决伊核问题的诚意应该得到重视。时至今日，伊朗仍在履行核不扩散义务，执行全面保障监督协定。伊朗一再强调不寻求发展核武器，以建设性姿态与美方开展多轮的专业务实谈判，从未放弃外交努力。然而，一些国家片面援引国际原子能机构总干事报告内容， 无视伊朗与机构合作的积极面，在没有充分协商情况下强行推动机构理事会通过决议，损害对话氛围，激化矛盾和对抗。有关国家应深刻反思这一不负责任的举措所产生的恶劣影响。主席，中方认为，解决伊核问题的外交手段尚未穷尽，和平解决仍有希望。各方应汲取教训，在平等基础上重启对话，推动伊朗核问题重返政治解决轨道。我强调3点：第一，确保停火止战是当务之急。事实证明，武力不是解决国际争端的正确方式，
I want to look at
也
something.
解决不了伊核问题。
This
中方注意
seems
到
really
当前局
interesting
势
to
发
me.
展，中方注意
There's
到当前的局势发
something
展，
being celebrated in
期
Peru,
待实现真正停火，切实有效落地。
and I think it's
有关
a
方
little
面
bit more
应采取
fascinating
切实
than
措施，
what
防
we're
止局
listening
势
to now.
再次升级。国际社会必须为推动局势降温、推动对话谈判做出努力。第二，坚持政治解决是唯一途径。
It's been on for a while now.
Pasajes que son las escogidas del sol. Los 3 escenarios son realmente parte de nuestra historia, lo cual nos hace sentir.
You don't have translation?
Tiene una esencia, tiene una vibranza y eso hace que nuestra emoción se exacerbe. Sentimos felicidad plena y esa emoción es la que quiero repetir también este año.
Durante todo este proceso, las energías justamente como que se renuevan en cada escenario. Llegamos a Sacsayhuamán y como es el punto central, sentimos otra vez la energía de vuelta, regresa,
de lo que nos ha dejado la civilización inca. Recuerden que estamos transmitiendo, además de nuestra señal televisiva, por nuestras plataformas
So they're
digitales.
celebrating some kind of
Que
ceremony.
más adelante, a lo largo de la transmisión, podamos enviarle algún saludo en
Well,
especial.
God knows, 1,000 years ago, if it included child sacrifices, but you know.
Se está viendo en compañía de quién y si es que ya ha logrado ver el Inti Raymi en vivo y en directo desde la capital histórica del Perú, desde el ombligo del mundo, la ciudad imperial El Cusco.
Pues bien, hoy celebramos un homenaje a nuestra historia viva. El Inti Raymi no solo es una fiesta, es el latido ancestral del Tahuantinsuyo que resuena aún en nuestros corazones. Es una ceremonia que nació durante el gobierno del gran Inca Pachacútec, reformador, podríamos decir, del Tahuantinsuyo. Esto en el siglo XV como agradecimiento al dios Inti, el sol fuente de vida y energía. Y antes del inicio de esta ceremonia vamos rápidamente a una pausa y regresamos en segundos nada más desde Sacsayhuamán.
Another. Nobody cares about this.
Como lo mencionábamos, el sonido de los pututus habla que ya empieza la ceremonia, además acompañado de los tambores. Y para darnos la carga académica está con nosotros Gonzalo Valderrama. Nuevamente, muy buenas tardes, Gonzalo. Cuéntanos acerca de esta premisa, esta parte previa del Inti Raymi, este llamado a través del sonido ancestral del pututu.
Buenas tardes a todos quienes están viendo esta transmisión. Los pututus que están invocando, anunciando la presencia del Inca, son en efecto una parte importante, ¿no?, de la parafernalia ritual del Inti Raymi. Uno podría pensar que corresponde solamente a la época del Tahuantinsuyo, pero los pututus se usaron a lo largo de la historia andina. Tenemos pututus que se encontraron, por ejemplo, en
It almost looks like they have pride flags.
y bueno, son evidencia de grandes rutas muy largas de intercambio, porque son caracolas que se encuentran en la actual costa de Ecuador, ¿no?, y que se usaban en
They're
los Andes,
reclaiming the pride flag,
hacia
Chad.
Chile. Son áreas donde se encuentran pututus en la arqueología.
Elementos de la costa hoy forman parte importante del imaginario andino y esto habla de la expansión del imperio incaico.
Sí, en efecto, ¿no? Habla de una articulación territorial que en el imperio incaico, bueno, fue este último periodo, ¿no?, de unidad que hubo entre los pueblos andinos, pero que se remonta a épocas más pasadas, ¿no? Por ejemplo, también a las del Imperio Wari, el sistema vial andino, el Capañán, ¿no?, que tiene un punto de confluencia importante en Sacsayhuamán. Hay partes de Capañán que están restauradas recientemente, puestas en valor. Por ejemplo, llegaba, ¿no?, a territorios muy lejanos y se construyó sobre la base del camino en época Wari. Entonces hay una articulación territorial evidente.
¿Qué personajes vemos ahora haciendo el acto?
Bueno, ahora vemos a los distintos guerreros que llegan de las 4 regiones del Tahuantinsuyo. El Tahuantinsuyo estuvo dividido políticamente entre el Antisuyo, el Chinchaysuyo, el Cuntisuyo, ¿no? Fueron las regiones del Tahuantinsuyo, ¿no?
Muy bien, Gonzalo, para que puedas ayudarnos en la traducción, el personaje que acabamos de apreciar es el Sinchi.
Sí, es un general del Inca. Sinchi es uno de los títulos que tenían los guerreros en el Incario. Algunos gobernantes también de la lista de los Capascuna, de los incas que gobernaron, llevan el nombre de Sinchi, ¿no? Está como Sinchi Roca, y está anunciando, ¿no?, la llegada de el Inca y su séquito.
Correcto. Y también va examinando, digamos, la disposición del pueblo para luego hacer el uso de esta palabra, ¿no? Mis hermanos cusqueños, en este mes de celebraciones de nuestra dorada tierra llega el Inti Raymi. Nuestra ciudad se llena de color, energía y tradición. Es ese momento del año en que salimos a las calles, recordamos de dónde venimos y celebramos con orgullo lo que nos hace únicos. Por eso Cusqueña quiere brindar con nosotros, porque cuando celebramos lo nuestro, cada encuentro, cada brindis y cada historia nos recuerdan que celebrar está en nuestro origen. Salud con Cusqueña, lo hacemos legendario. Tomar bebidas alcohólicas en exceso es dañino. Muy bien. Entonces hemos escuchado las palabras del Sinchi, quien le anuncia al pueblo que Pachacútec está por llegar para dirigir la gran ceremonia donde el Padre Sol va a mostrar su divina voluntad, ¿no? Invita además que la plaza sea ocupada por la gente, por los guerreros.
Gonzalo, acaba de dar una locución el general llamando a sus huestes y también a su región. ¿Qué es lo que dijo?
Está anunciando la participación, ¿no?, de sus huestes del ejército en el Inti Raymi, y un detalle muy importante que pide que se haga con alegría, porque esta es una fiesta, ¿no?, una fiesta al sol, y que implicaba sí la alegría de una vuelta a un tiempo, ¿no?, de otra vez de prosperidad. El día más corto del año pues fue el solsticio, ¿no? Y a partir de esta fecha volvemos a tener días largos, ¿no? Y es el inicio de un nuevo ciclo. Es una ceremonia que tuvo un carácter calendárico y ritual relacionado a la agricultura, ¿no? Entonces el anuncio, ¿no?, de un nuevo periodo, el inicio de un nuevo periodo es para alegrarse.
Exactamente, ¿no? Gonzalo, es una celebración que la vemos solemne desde un punto de vista, pero en el fondo es una celebración a la vida. La vida es alegría, es prosperidad, se vienen nuevos augurios y es un poco lo que se trata de representar en esta celebración, ¿no? Empezó muy solemne en el Coricancha, porque es el momento del primer encuentro del Inca con el sol. Luego, en la Plaza de Armas, cuando el Inca se encuentra con el alcalde y con el pueblo. Aquí es donde recibe la visita de los 4 ayllus y termina en una fiesta. Así vamos a, como se dice, a contarles un poquito el final de la historia. Hay una linda fiesta al final de todo esto.
Sí, bueno, en efecto, ¿no? Es una fiesta. Es verdad que hay momentos de solemnidad, ¿no? Pero en líneas generales el Inti Raymi fue en los tiempos del Incario una gran fiesta donde había también mucha bebida, por ejemplo, ya que mencionaron el tema de la bebida, las crónicas, por ejemplo, mencionan que en estas fiestas se consumía bastante chicha, por ejemplo, ¿no?, a raudales. Entonces la gente tenía licencia, por ejemplo, de emborracharse estos días, ¿no?
Exactamente. Las grandes celebraciones en el Perú antiguo tenían cantidades enormes de chicha. Y hablando de celebraciones, quería contarles que la ciudad imperial ya disfruta del Inti Raymi, así como todos los cusqueños que también celebran el ahorro gracias a los precios bajos de Plaza Vea. Plaza Vea, orgulloso auspiciador de la fiesta del Inti Raymi. Qué hermoso que es Sacsayhuamán, ¿no?
Bellísimo, con estas imágenes tan impresionantes, ¿no? Las huifalas en lo más alto, este complejo arqueológico, y seguimos escuchando los pututos.
El momento solemne, ¿no? Uno vibra cuando escucha los pututus. Algunos datos sobre Sacsayhuamán. Estamos en la explanada de Chuquipampa, ¿no?, dentro del parque arqueológico Sacsayhuamán. Estamos solamente a 2 kilómetros arriba, a un pasito de la ciudad del Cusco. La gente normalmente sube y baja caminando. También hay la opción de venir por la carretera, ¿no?, para hacerlo más cómodo. A 3.700 metros de altura, una explanada que domina todo el valle del Cusco, especialmente toda la ciudad del Cusco. Una obra portentosa que nos dejaron nuestros ancestros, los incas, que consiste básicamente en 3 enormes plataformas con rocas, con piedras ciclopias, algunas de ellas que creo tienen hasta más de 8 metros de altura y que hasta ahora causan admiración por cómo fue construido Sacsayhuamán.
120 toneladas. Bien.
¿Cómo movieron ese peso y para armarlo de una manera tan perfecta como lo estamos viendo ahí?
Parece un rompecabezas divino y esto sigue asombrando precisamente a la ciencia moderna, ¿no? Y habla también de los saberes ancestrales, de la magia de nuestra cultura.
Muy bien. Se le ha preguntado entonces al pueblo si están unidos todos, ¿no, Gonzalo, para recibir a Pachacuti?
Sí, en efecto, el general está haciendo una invocación a la reunión, a la unidad, ¿no? Para recibir al gobernante, al Zarraínca.
Correcto, y en breve el Sinchi estará comunicando que el Inca ya está por ingresar, por lo cual le exhorta a los pueblos que lo puedan recibir con veneración y que él está acercándose.
The Sinchi also commanded all people to cheer for this festivity. He used the word highly means long
Vamos a las
live.
ticatacas. ¿Cuál era la función de estas mujeres, Gonzalo?
Está descrito en diversas crónicas que el paso del Inca era bastante solemne y acompañado, ¿no? Como vemos aquí, de danzarines, de músicos, y también se echaban flores a su paso.
Damaging winds possible tomorrow.
Dice el Chasqui, el Inca ha llegado, está muy cerca, ya va a ingresar. Sinchi recoge la noticia y cursa la invitación a los presentes para que recibamos al soberano con respeto, con cariño y con salva de vivas, o los jaimes que hemos dicho se dicen quechua.
The Chasqui just told the Sinchi that the Inca is just coming. And he's also inviting us to rejoice with them with the same sound that everybody says here. Highly.
El sacerdocio femenino dedicado al culto del fuego sagrado. La sacerdotisa principal cortando el telonero y coronada como corresponde a su categoría de yaya, preside este manojo de sacerdotisas que guardan el fuego por todo el año. Hoy día,
amigos, estamos en esta transmisión de TV Perú desde la ciudad del Cusco, en la parte culminante de la gran y esperada celebración del Inti Raymi. Gonzalo y amigos de la transmisión, normalmente uno cuando habla de los incas, una de las cosas que más tiene en mente son sus construcciones, sus sitios arqueológicos. Pero ahora, cuando vemos el Inti Raymi, nos damos cuenta que sus trajes, la textilería, sus tejidos también eran fabulosos.
Sí, en efecto, la civilización andina es famosa en el mundo por sus textiles, ¿no? En la época del Incario hubieron dos tipos de vestido. Uno, digamos, más ordinario, pero luego había el tejido kumpi, que era muy fino, ¿no?
El que usaba la nobleza.
Sí, el que usaba la nobleza, y no solo la nobleza, podemos pensar que también el pueblo, en ocasiones especiales, había una riqueza en los textiles, una riqueza en la textilería, en general en todas las culturas del Ande. Y mencionaste las construcciones, Sacsayhuamán. Es un misterio, ¿no? Como se suele decir, el cómo se construyó. Pero hay descripciones que nos hablan de cómo pudo haber sido hecho. Hay un cronista que se llama Juan de Betanzos, que tiene un libro en el que narra, por ejemplo, que para construir Sacsayhuamán el Inca reunió durante años a grupos que se turnaban en la construcción. Estos grupos eran de 50.000 personas, lo menciona Betanzos. Entonces podemos responder a esta pregunta, ¿no? ¿Cómo se construyó? Con mucha gente,
con mucha buena organización.
Sí, con una organización que movilizaba mano de obra por millares, ¿no? por miles.
Y lo que todavía, porque siempre cuando uno habla del pasado hay versiones, no queda muy claro si fue realmente fortaleza, si fue un sitio especialmente sagrado, ¿no? Esa magia todavía, ese misterio continúa en Sacsayhuamán.
Bueno, sí, le llamamos fortaleza sobre todo porque fue escenario de la lucha de la resistencia inca, ¿no? Encabezada por Manco Inca, que va a ocupar Sacsayhuamán y se va a trincherar en este espacio.
1536, ¿verdad?
Sí.
¿Qué tan importante hemos visto a lo largo del día la presencia de las momias de los ancestros, las malquis? ¿Qué tan importante eran estas celebraciones?
Un detalle es que los malquis eran en realidad los personajes y los protagonistas principales de esta ceremonia. Es más, el Inca daba un saludo al sol, ¿no? Y luego daba un saludo a los malquis, ¿no? Que jerárquicamente estaban por sobre la figura de los incas vivos, ¿no? Los ancestros. Y los malquis eran conceptuados como seres vivientes, es decir, eran momias, pero se les trataba como si aún
Hello. Good afternoon. Trying to pull up your thing here. I wish we had translations for what we were watching here, but we sadly do not.
De escuchar el canto de las huilagninas.
I think it's some sort of
una parte especial dentro de esta ceremonia.
reenactment of some ancient thing like the Mayans or somebody would have done.
Eran quienes portaban el fuego solar encendido, como vieron, mediante espejos metálicos que concentraban los rayos del Inca. Su aparición representa la pureza, la renovación y la conexión entre lo femenino y divino. Repetimos, importante el rol de la mujer dentro del Imperio Incaico y que el Inti Raymi en nuestros días trata de representar fielmente como en el pasado.
El rito del fuego. Ha sido encendido el fuego sagrado. Los sacerdotes y las sacerdotisas.
Amigos de todo el Perú y el mundo, esta es la celebración del Inti Raymi, la fiesta del sol desde la ciudad de Cusco. Vámonos a un breve, muy breve corte comercial y volvemos con el final de esta importante y emocionante celebración.
The new fires are already lit. Now this fire is going to be distributed into 4 suyos. This fire is going to go on to each of the corners of the fire. And this fire is going to go on throughout the year. On behalf of this ritual, the king also ordered to do a dancing.
En gratitud al Taitai, el dios sol, que con su rayo ha encendido el fuego sagrado, el Inca ha pedido una danza más. Es la danza que trae el Contisú. Es el Papacarpo. En esta coreografía se puede apreciar los diferentes pasos, las fases, los actos, las actividades que se cumplen en el gran sembrío de la papa, alimento fundamental para la salud, para la alimentación de la población incaica. Es Papacarpo, que viene del Contisú.
The Inca ordered to do a dancing. This dancing comes from the Chinchaysuyo region, Chinchaysuyo state. The name of this dancing is the Papacarpo.
Se hace ayuno, hay abstinencia, incluso abstinencia sexual, y también el uso del fuego se hacía de manera bastante moderada. Por eso es que se puede decir, es como si nos cortaran la luz. Para esperar que den algo muy importante, el uso del fuego estaba casi al mínimo, y por eso es que llegan estos personajes femeninos con el fuego nuevamente y lo encienden en el Ushtu, porque ya algo nuevo y bueno está empezando. Amigos, estamos en el Inti Raymi, en el Cusco, exactamente en la explanada de Sacsayhuamán. Volvemos con mucho más en unos instantes, vámonos a un corte comercial.
Okay. Hey. Well, whatever the fuck that was, it's over now. There really isn't much happening right now. As far as Israel is concerned. This is like literally the only even live stream that we even have. The skyline that I can find. Let me see her. I know that Trump is on his way to the NATO summit. Yeah, this is all there is. It's probably because the news is assuming that the worst of it is over. So it's like, we'll see, you know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. want to, you can try and sit on my lap while I'm doing this. We're just gonna have to suffice with the fact that we're able to get that close to me. I wish you all could hear him purr. I think I might have hit a pretty decent stopping point, actually. Yeah, didn't like the way that I tried to grab him that time. Trying to keep him from falling off my lap. What? I was trying to keep you from falling off my lap. Hey! Don't be mad at me for trying to keep you from falling off my lap. Merry Christmas. Cats can be so ungrateful, you people. So ungrateful. Yeah, there's nothing going on. So we're gonna stop for the time being now.
Hi, Avi. I'm a ton of fun. I'm a fun guy. Let me eat your fucking ass. Evie's on her laptop, pissed off again. brain whiplash. You dropped a Substack like it's gospel law, trying to cancel Nick with a dramatic how. You quote case law like you're dropping bombs, but the whole damn vibe screams mad.com. You got no jokes, no laughs, just rage. A 1,000,000-word essay just to set the stage. You said he's vile, a menace, a clown, but it's you writing novels just to take him down. Nick's in your fucking brain like a squatter on crack. He's making dad jokes, you're planning attacks. You tweet accountability in all caps, bold, but girl, nobody buys the shit you sold. He's cracking up, his fans throw tips. You're sitting in the dark with chewed up lips. You've got folders named Nick with receipts and stats, trying to take him down like it's Mortal Kombat. You say you're helping truth, bringing justice in waves, but you dig through live streams like you're raiding graves. Could've chilled out, had a wine, watched a flick. Instead you're obsessed with roasting this prick. You're writing think pieces, line by line, while Nick's out living rent-free in your spine. Nick's in your fucking head like a VIP ghost, throwing up middle fingers while you're doing the most. You call him toxic, call him trash, but he don't respond, and that's what makes you crash. So here's your crown, queen of the feud, scrolling his clips in a badass mood. You ain't taking him down, he's 10 steps ahead, 'cause Nick Rekiana lives fucking rent-free in your head. Evie, let me eat your ass. John's dead.
I'm a ton of fun, I'm a fun guy.
Oh, Suno, your digital delight, always there to guide me.